when this happened, I felt something inside me give way, and I realized I don't need the winds of winter anymore.
Oh no, don't say that.
I have everything
No!
I need right here. Everything I've always wanted.
All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome back for DragonCast, Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks, ? An interesting title. Them keeping the episode titles under wrap, I guess. And that maybe would have seemed like a spoiler, but it wouldn't have been if it was the episode title. My name is Adam, also known as drownedsnow on the podcast Device and Fire forums. And I am joined by Matt.
Varley on the forums.
Katie.
This is Katie, Lady Griffin on the forums.
Kevin.
Creepy Nuncle Kevin on the forums. Kevin.
Let's see. Casey, you there?
I'm here. I'm Blue-Eyed Queen on the forums.
And Vikram. Welcome back.
Hi everyone, I'm Vikram. I go by as fortytwo on the forums.
So for those of you that don't know, because it has been a little while, Vikram is one of the original Vassals of Kingsgrave curators, the original DragonCast, all of that. So it's good to have you with us here for the final season.
Yeah, I thought I'd show up after seeing all those reunions on episode 1 and 2. I heard, hey, maybe it's time to dip back in for one last time.
Yeah, we thought you were in Bravos, man.
Yeah.
You've been rowing your rowboat down to King's Landing this entire time?
Yeah, something like that.
In charge of Marine.
Yeah, like Dario, I was left in Marine. No, I'm like Ghost, they left me beyond the wall.
Oh, poor Ghost looked pretty beat up, man. I hope you're doing better.
Yeah, we'll get to it. That was, I don't know. Is it weird that my worst moments in this were involving animals for this episode? I was like, what the fuck, man? At least pet the dog on the way out. Anyway, yeah, maybe it's not a big deal.
Yeah, it looked like Ghost needed a bath. Somebody better give him a bath.
Hey, let's give our living cakes.
Hey, Katie got
Katie, why don't you go first?
This might be my favorite episode in many seasons. I'll give it a 5.
Really?
What?
I do
Nice.
Usually when I'm, I will give these episodes a 5 because my critical filter is completely off at this point. And when I do that, I usually understand why people dislike the episodes that I've liked for the past few seasons. This is one where I genuinely feel confusion about the backlash and the frustration with this episode because I really didn't have many problems with it. So yeah, we'll get into it later. I thought it was great. I thought it felt like parts of it felt like a season 1 episode, especially early on. There were parts that genuinely I felt gutted by and cut by, and I really didn't. I had one major issue with the way a certain character is treated, but other than that, I really enjoyed it.
All right, Matt.
All right. So I'm gonna give this a 2.5. I'll give it a 4.0 for the yay, everyone, we just won the battle, let's go fuck, let's get promoted, let's do our thing. That was campy and fun, and I loved Sansa and the Hound getting together, and I felt bad for Tormund, and yay for Brienne and Jaime finally. And then it just took a turn, and I don't know if they just don't know how to write actual dialogue anymore, and they only know how to write battle scenes, or if Dany doesn't know how to use her fucking dragons for aerial reconnaissance by now, then she deserves to lose them all because of someone hiding behind a great fleet of ships hiding behind a little low island. I'm so upset that everyone's so stupid, and I think that Varys is Varys and Sansa were the only ones making sense on the second half of this episode.
Okay, strong take from Matt. How about you, Vic?
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I'm going to give it a bowl of brown or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't had the Bull of Brown in a while.
I know.
Okay.
It's yeah. That's what my reflex was after watching this episode. Yeah, I didn't like it at all. I don't like. I mean, we'll talk later, I guess, about where the show is going with Danny. Just kind of feels like they're going to throw her under the bus, and I just don't understand it. So yeah, it's a bowl
Yeah.
of brown.
All right. Casey, what do you think?
So I think I gave it a 3. I'm going to use the same thing I've been saying for a little bit about this episode. I feel the same way I felt when I first watched Into the Woods, where the second act comes up and they kill the narrator, and I'm really fucking confused. So I'm just like, there's a couple like really funny moments, and there's 1 or 2 really nice moments in the beginning, and then the rest of it I feel like just kind of went too fast, like throughout time, and like I just couldn't like figure out like how they were getting from place to place, which is, I know that I shouldn't be complaining about that, but
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a problem in the past.
Yeah, Euron had
Yeah.
Littlefinger's TARDIS. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm less like upset about those things now. Like we're this deep in. Kevin, what did you think?
I kind of am at like 3 lemon cakes out of 5. It was one of those episodes where I think my left brain, everything made sense. And this has kind of been the whole season for me. It's like everything in a certain way makes sense, or at least I can come up with a rationale for why certain things happen. But I just keep the episodes end, and I'm just kind of like, that was it, and not in like a, I want more next week kind of way, but just sort of, that was all that this episode was. So okay, so, nothing too specific,
Okay.
but emotional level, I guess.
So I think, I mean, I guess I'm maybe a little bit on the other side of the spectrum from some of you guys. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or a 3 on the forum. I'd probably bump that up a little bit, maybe like maybe closer to a 4. I got to take off just because of the way Rhaegal died, not making any sense to me and being frustrating. And, you know, Jon like sending his ghost away really weirdly. I don't know. But for the most part, like, I get what they're trying to do. There's so much fan service in this episode, which I think a lot of people loved, but also that didn't really necessarily feel natural. So I'm like, whatever, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, they're setting up the final conflict. This is kind of what I expected. We had enough good moments. There were just some confusing moments, like Jaime being such an asshole, and you know, Rhaegal and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, that's where I'm at, but I think it's not like the best episode of Game of Thrones ever.
I think like I almost like don't want to. I almost want to watch this again like in a month, where I'm not like too unhappy with potentially the Night King plot being just completely over right now, because I think that might be what's actually bothering me, not necessarily like everything that's happening in this episode. There's definitely problems, but I almost wish I had some time to like sit on it a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're all still kind of disappointed by that. I know I am. So I'm trying to look at it like a little bit separated from that. It's hard. Coffeegate almost like bumped this up a little more for me, because that's been fun all day.
I love Coffeegate.
With the coffee, which and just to say, I mean, if people don't know, there was a coffee on the table in the Great Hall, and we'll get to this scene in a minute. But, you know, Daenerys, I think it was actually like tea or something they said, but it's a modern looking coffee cup. It stands out when you watch the scene again, and okay. But it also stands out so much because like they haven't had mistakes like this
Since George Bush.
Well, I mean, the show's
forgot
been so
about
good
that.
about this. So
Inaccurate.
the show's been fairly consistent with things like this. So I mean, I'll give them credit for 7+ seasons of that. Let's jump into this, okay? So the previously on to this episode sets up the fucking bow and Bronn and all this shit that we're gonna see in this episode, which is kind of whatever. But it opens up with Jon and a speech as they bury the dead, and it shows like the significant people we saw die last week, and confirms the people that we weren't sure that were dead are kind of alive, lighting these funeral pyres. What did you guys think of Jon's speech?
I think there was a question on like, oh, where did they find all the wood? I'm just like, they wanted to honor like the dead that died defending. Like, I get it. Like, it's silly, I get it, but like, I get why they just didn't heap all the corpses into a giant pile and have the dragons go at it. So I didn't have a problem.
Yeah,
with
they wanted to look good. I mean, I thought the speech was good. John's got his accent back.
Yeah. A little bit of
yeah.
a Night's Watch flair in there, you know.
They copied like Night's Watch and they copied like Lord of the Rings. Like they just sort of stole a whole bunch of stuff for the speech, I think.
Well, not knowing any of that information, I liked it. Because I mean, I don't have any reference for like Lord of the Rings or anything like that. And I also wasn't thinking about where did they get the wood. I thought it was a really good scene, and the part like
the forest.
The part, yeah, wherever that is now. But you know,
wherever woods go.
When Sansa was standing over Theon and she put the Stark pin on him, I teared up a bit.
Oh yeah,
that was sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was I the only one who was thinking there's too few bodies? I mean,
yes,
it's like 50,000 Dothraki bodies, right? Or 100,000 Dothraki should be there too.
Yeah.
Well, and plus all the bodies of the already undead. Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, my theory is that they kind of were honoring the heroes. That maybe this is like several days where they'd already sort of piled up and burned the bulk of the bodies, and this was, they tried to find their people. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and the trench was gone as well, so maybe they put all the undead bodies in the trench and filled it up.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of those things where it's like, it's one thing to get onto logistics when they matter for the plot, but they don't really have anything to do. They don't really have anything to do with this at all. Like it was about the beauty of the scene, and this was probably one of the few moments where, on an emotional level, you just appreciated everything that everybody went through to have this moment. And it, I think it's supposed to sort of be the dichotomy of this show, or of this episode and the show in general and the series and everything is, they're celebrating the most important thing they could have possibly done, and then back to everybody stabbing each other minutes later.
Yeah, guys, but like logistically, my biggest qualm with this scene was they lit the first buyers first. That means you had to go through the body smoke to light the next one, and then the next one. They should have started from the back one and worked towards.
You're killing me. Last week with the pitch they had, like those were actually metal like logs and stuff because wood would burn. So anyway, that's just what the show has to do to make it work. But yeah, I thought that the importance was the emotional impact. And I appreciated John saying, like, we need to keep their memories alive, like, for as long as men live. Like, that's our burden now. And I hope they do something to do it. They've, seemed to move on, some of them fairly quickly from that. But, I mean, like, House Mormont's gone.
Bran's still around. He's the backup recorder for Westeros.
He's going to be old Dan someday. So...
I forget, what's the Dothraki custom for burial? Is it burning too? The cremation?
Yeah, to send them to the night skies or whatever, where they can ride. That's what she did to Drogo.
Yeah, and the soldiers of the Vale, they practice the 7 religion, right? Or the 7 gods. So they do the vigil, they put the stone eyes, the stone or the coins on the eye, right?
I don't think the Royces do, because I think they still practice the old gods, which we got to see Royce in the background of this one, which we didn't see him at all last episode, so that was nice.
Yeah, that was my concern, was like, is this the rituals they normally do? Cremation? Or do they do something else? Because the Starks bury their dead, right? So I was kind of like...
Well, there were so many different religions that came together, to defeat, this army of the dead. And I think maybe, fire was their weapon, and fire was how they prevented, the whites from getting up. So it also fits with several of the religions involved anyway. So maybe fire was just the simplest, and most meaningful solution.
Mm-hmm. See, yeah, I guess this starts a new tradition too. Just burn their dead just in case.
Yeah. They fixed Winterfell's wall pretty quickly.
Oh, where Viserion crashed through it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so from here we go on. We see that Ghost is beat to shit. No one acknowledges Ghost hardly this episode. His physical presence, he's sadly just not around in any of the scenes. I mean, when John sends him away, it's one thing, but It's like no one pets him. No one is like, hey, maybe let's like try to sew his ear back on.
Sorry,
I think
Katie,
it might be a technical limitation because I'm trying to remember the last time anybody physically touched him.
It's been
like,
years.
Yeah, it might just be that it looks bad. Like maybe there was a scene where John like petted his direwolf goodbye, but they were like, yeah, this looks like shit.
They're like, no, thank you.
You see, I thought like the opposite. I thought maybe Ghost was an afterthought, so they didn't even have like, you know, a tennis ball on a string for anyone to look at. They just kind of put him in there.
Well, this is the first episode where I think they actually like made a point of like Ghost, because they're sending him away, so they kind of made a point of putting him in the episode.
Yeah, I think like during
in a while
they planned it, but like when you just see him like in the lineup right as John's making a speech, no one acknowledges his like. Yeah. I think it may have just been an afterthought.
Like there may not have been an on-set stand-on. They just found a way to get him in there. Yeah, right. I could see that. Which is, it is what it is. It still makes me sad, but not a big deal. So from there, we move into the Great Hall, where there's just a lot of awkwardness going on. The most awkward starts with Dany just kind of, I guess a lot of her men are gone, so she feels out of her element. And then she like randomly is like, yo, Gendry, what up? Lord of Storm's in. And Sansa's like, what the fuck? What was going on here?
I don't know what Sansa was all in a twist about, but I like this. I like Gendry getting, naturalized as a true Baratheon and, ship up behind them, and now he gets Storm's in.
Maybe she knows about Arya, and she's like, you fucked my sister.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but wouldn't she be happy like he's not a bastard blacksmith anymore? He's like one of the high lords, and be like, all right, now you can fuck my sister. That's fine.
Well, it seemed like in the episode that Sansa may have known that Arya was going away, so they seem to have some kind of understanding, or I wouldn't understand like why Sansa would like be okay with it otherwise.
Why did Gendry tell the Hound he banged Arya?
I think the Hound sort of knew somehow, is what it seemed like, but also Gendry was like really
excited about it.
I mean, he like has his like confession, and it's like, I'm in love with you. Oh, by the way, marriage proposal, and she's like, slow the fuck down. Like, one night does not make me your lady.
I thought that was actually really believable, not just because the actor really sells it, but it's like he's so high on the moment that it's like nothing can go wrong for him, and so it's like, why not? I mean, he catches feelings really fast, and is really stunned when Arya's like, yeah, the sex wasn't that good.
That was probably one of my favorite scenes, and I was like half cringing, half just like, is this really gonna happen? And then also just like, yeah, Arya. We all felt the same when we saw her in that one scene after the sex.
Yeah, but like when they kissed, it gave me hope. I was like, what? Like maybe it can happen.
I think that was actually Arya trying to see if she like had anything there.
Oh, I thought it was just her saying goodbye. Like she was obviously touched by what he was offering, but the sacrifice that she would have to make for it was just too much.
She got plans.
Yeah. She has shit to do.
I do think, maybe it's just how the episode ended and everything with Daenerys, but I do think maybe she raised Gendry up in an effort that he could go rally the Stormlands. I don't think they've...
he can run really fast.
Yeah,
he's actually already there.
He probably rode right through Euron's fleet and didn't even see him. So.
Who's doing anything in the Stormlands? Like most of their lords, I assume at this point have just
probably a free for all,
gone back home, and I assume they've all like kind of prepared for winter, and they're like, we're not getting involved in shit.
Well, I mean, they're probably fortifying their border against the new Prince of Dorne, who will be named later, and I don't think we ever learned any other Riverland, crew besides Highgarden, which isn't even, or the Stormland. Like, I don't think we learned of any other house, did we, besides Baratheon?
Brian's house is Brian's house is in the Stormlands, right?
Oh yeah,
and Barrack.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they should have made Brian the the Lord of Stormlands or the Lady of Stormland.
Maybe then Jamie would have stuck around.
So, do you think this was a smart decision for Dany? I mean, I think it's. She thinks it is. It seems like a smart idea.
Yeah,
And
I think
she immediately is like, "Look how clever I am." And
Yeah,
then
she
Sansa
should
gives her these
be-
weird eyes.
Yeah, she should be rewarding everybody. She should have made a hound, the Lord of House Clegane or whatever. I'm trying to look up where
Hmm.
House Clegane is. It just says
By the
Clegane's That's
Lannisters.
it.
Yeah.
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 The
Tywin's
castle there.
stable.
Yeah, and she should have been like, okay, we don't need the Night's Watch anymore, so you guys are all free. I'm freeing you guys from all the oaths. And if you guys come fight for me, I'm gonna give you lands around King's Landing or something.
Yeah, why
that.
didn't she give
Yeah.
Tormund High Hearth?
Higher?
Well, Tormund
Oh,
didn't seem to want to stay below the wall, like
Which is
for whatever
so
reason.
stupid. Winter's like here, and they want to go back up north of the wall.
Winter wasn't the
Exactly.
problem for the wildlings. It was the White Walkers, and so
The
it's
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he said that they were going to wait out the winter storms in Castle Black. So ties it up enough for the show, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, they have. I'm assuming the wildlings they hunt and all that, but they have stores. They probably stock things up, and that's all depleted and gone. So they kind of have to start over when they go back up there. So it makes sense to maybe kind of wait at Castle Black until the situation gets a little better.
This is kind of probably dumb of me, but I was expecting now that the White Walkers are gone, there's not going to be winter anymore. It's always going to be summer. Was that too optimistic of me?
Or the seasons are just normal. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. I thought there's no more winter, no more White Walkers because they bring this winter, right? And so yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but there were
I don't
winters
know.
before when they didn't show up. I don't know. I thought winters was always a thing. Hold on.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
Well, the Long Night was so long ago. It's hard to. The records aren't accurate or anything. But I will say that King's Landing didn't seem to be very wintry.
No, it was a desert.
Yeah.
There is, at least in I think it's World of Ice and Fire, there's like a couple throwaway lines about having multiple seasons in 1 year before the long night or something. So maybe that's right, Vic.
yeah, no, it's gonna
Yeah, I
be
mean,
like
it
a
could
normal thing.
be a really short winter. We
Yeah.
have no idea. Well, let's see. So the other thing that happened after this that kind of I thought was weird was Tyrion talking to Bran, and he's like, "Well, you're Lord of Winterfell now," and like I thought that whole sort of thing was kind of settled a long time ago. Like, wouldn't they
Yeah.
assume Jon as the Lord of Winterfell if he's looking for a male heir? But like Sansa and Arya are currently running that shit. Like Bran's just not even on the radar for anyone. He's just creepy.
And he doesn't want to be. Like, he's stated multiple times, like, I'm not Brandon Stark anymore. I'm like the Three-Eyed Raven. So
Right.
And I thought after his mystery conversation with Tyrion, like, that would have sunk into Tyrion's stupid fat head. But apparently he's not as clever as we
Tyrion's
thought
lost it,
forever.
man. Yeah. Tyrion's just lost it.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, the more interesting dialogue was between Tyrion and Davos, where they were talking about what's this red religion stuff, right? I mean, so they were talking about, okay, what does the Red God want? He helped us defeat the White Walkers. Now he's gone with Melisandre. So what's next? And Tyrion says, yeah, let's not worry about it. Let's worry about human stuff. How do you guys
Yeah.
read that exchange?
That's talking to the viewers.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I listened to this other show, All Shift X on YouTube, and they were kind of reading, all this, super fantasy stuff is all weird, right? Let's go back to our politics and stuff.
Yeah, I got to imagine that. Like, they brought it up just to be like, oh, yeah, there's not going to be any more, like, Red Priest magic. But I still don't understand what Melisandre was doing over in Volantis, and have to believe that she was rallying someone, the Red Priest that will show up hopefully next episode. We only got 2 left, so...
Well, the next 2 episodes I think are pretty long, but I think a lot of shit's going to have to go down next week, personally. Let's see what else. There's a lot of drinking games, bonding. still that weird tension with Daenerys, and then Varys shows up and she just gets the fuck out of there.
I do feel like I had one moment where I felt for Dany when Tormund is like, "Can you believe Jon Snow rode a dragon? That's amazing!" And she just listens like, "Girl, I've been there."
She's like, "I'm the mother of those dragons. That's my fucking thing, dude." Oh yeah.
So she like has seen Jon's scars and keeps on hearing about him getting a knife in the heart, but Tormund really laid it out that he died. Does she know the whole story yet?
It doesn't appear so, but they've clearly had a conversation, because we'll get there, because I wrote down at this point, I was like, why the fuck hasn't Jon, like, talked to her and settled this yet? Which I guess they've sort of talked about already, which we learn in a later scene. But I think a big part of their relationship problems, I don't know, they don't have any chemistry, so whatever, is, they just don't talk to each other about this shit. He should just be like, I died, here's what happened, here's my story. Here's who I am, and like just talk it out, maybe. Instead, she's just still sort of seems to not really get the whole died. I sort of heard that, but I don't really understand. I'm not gonna ask questions.
I mean, she walked in a pyre and hatched dragon eggs. I feel like she's pretty open to the idea that magic can do a lot of crazy things. Like I think that's what, I mean, initially it was just Jon trying not to complicate things when needed at all to sound a little more believable. But yeah, it's kind of weird that they haven't at least addressed it at this point.
Maybe she just looks at him and says, he's on my level. And that's it.
No, I think Jon intentionally isn't telling Dany that he died and came back because it's kind of like gross, right? I mean, sleeping with a dead body, necrophilia.
Yeah, a dead nephew is much worse than a live nephew.
It's less creepy than sleeping with your aunt, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm okay with incest. I'm okay up till incest, but necrophilia, that's crossing the line. Sorry.
Okay, so in these scenes, we also get a sort of a mention of Tysha during the drinking game, and they talk about the fact that Tyrion was married before, and then we get kind of like a little stuff for the sand chippers, I guess. This is like the first time they've had this conversation, right? Like they haven't really been talking like at all.
This was the best scene. This was I thought that this was everything that I've ever hoped for and wanted.
Did you think he was about to become her consort?
Yes. But I wasn't that hopeful.
But this was a good scene. I think this was good writing here.
I like
something people were looking for.
I mean, I kind of am hating a little bit on their like staring thing. I forget who mentioned that they're basically like doing like this emoting acting thing that they really like to do throughout the show. But like I was a big sucker for it, when you just like looking at Sansa, looking at the Hound and whoever girl that was trying to hit on him, and her like, looking at the scene, waiting for her to leave, go away, and then just walking up to him and being like, hello, we haven't talked yet.
Yeah.
I really like this scene as well. Not just, I feel like Mihal and I were kind of talking about this scene, and I feel like it's a scene that might be a little easy to read in, that somehow that Sansa is trying to put a silver lining on her rape, and I don't really that wasn't my takeaway from it at all. It was more like she's had something that has been done to her that cannot be undone, and it's just part of trauma. That part of processing it is like, what have I learned from this experience? And ultimately it's like my life has gone on and I am better and stronger for it. Not that it was like necessary to be like for those things to happen to her.
Right.
Just that like they did happen. She survived and she knows more about the world now.
Yeah, I felt it was sort of her talking to the Hound and saying like, I got through it, and like, look what I am now, like, look what I've done, sort of thing.
I also, I didn't see that throughout when I was watching the show, but I saw that on the internet later, and I kind of took it more as her talking about like her entire experience, like not just her marriages or rapes, but the Littlefinger manipulating her and like being tossed by Cersei all the time. I think that she encompassed everything into what made her who she is today.
I do like the Hound's reaction when she tells him how she dealt with Ramsay finally.
Rory McCann is once again one of the best face actors on this show because he is both proud of her and like deeply cut by the knowledge that her reaction, like, this is who I am now. Like, I would have been a little bird forever if I'd gone with you. Like, he takes that, and it's a bittersweet thing of like, yeah, you're right. You're probably stronger for it, but also like, what a terrible lesson to learn.
But also, I feel like he feels bad for himself. Like, that's right, and I couldn't have done that for you. I would have just saved you from Joffrey and all that. And
sure, I mean, like the head. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say just like that. He feels bad that she like is kind of owning all this tragedy that happened and not looking back at him as like this hero that could have saved her from it happening to her at all.
He's very much speaking to himself whenever he talks to Sansa about like, I wish I could have protected you from this awful thing, but I couldn't, and
right,
and that's terrible.
I feel like he does that a lot too when he's talking to Arya, and with the buddy show back on the road down south, I think we'll probably get some more conversations like that.
I do kind of wonder if maybe they're like intentionally playing up Sansa as like a continuous apology for that scene. Because at this point, I mean,
Probably.
she's sort of like the North's version of a therapist, like as like understanding of someone else, and she's so concerned about the Hound and like telling him to move forward, even though she's being kind of hard and being a Stark about it. It's like you still see humanity that you don't necessarily see in a lot in the show, in the way that she just seems to kind of have these conversations with people and politely, or at least in a way that they don't seem too put off, point out their flaws and challenge them to move forward with Sansa or with Sandor or Jon, different characters.
Yeah, just not Dany. Dany's put off.
I take that more as Sansa using her power in a sense. Like there was that scene in the last episode where she said like, this is all we can do now. We can just sit here and wait. And I think that her true superpower when everybody is in this kind of scenario, it really is to talk to everybody and not just like, make a speech or whatever like Jon did, or do something grandiose like Dany did, but go and talk to the people. Like there's also this really nice like part of that scene where all the Night's Watch guys are kind of like jostling Jon around, and I think Sansa has a nice quip in there, like, you can do it, like when they're telling Jon to like drink the whole like can of wine or something.
Can of wine?
Or beer, I don't know.
When out of the horn, and he's like, I don't want to vomit, and they're like, that's part of the fun. Speaking of the Horn of Tormund, he was rather put out through most of the scene. Poor man, right up until our next transition into Brienne running away and Jaime following her, and I'm like, is this happening? And it's happening.
Oh my God. This is I had a religious experience during the scene. It was like
did you see Red R'hllor?
Exactly. Yeah, well, Jaime and Brienne are like my favorite characters from the books, and I don't necessarily want them to get together in the books. I think the relationship is a little more ambiguous, but in the show, I absolutely have always wanted them to fuck. And so when this happened, I felt something inside me give way, and I realized I don't need the winds of winter anymore.
Oh no, don't say that.
I have everything I need right here. Everything I've always wanted. Yes. It was such a catharsis. I don't give a shit about anything after this.
That breaking thing like reseal itself when Jaime left.
Well, it didn't actually. I was like, didn't matter, had sex, it did.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen mostly a lot of positive reactions to this. I didn't think they were going to do this, but it was very sweet, and especially after the scene a couple episodes ago with Jamie knighting her, and it's just I was, and then he was going to stay in Winterfell for her, even though that didn't quite work out, but it was nice fan service.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I mean, maybe it's only because he's been fucking his sister his entire life, but his game was, it's bloody hot in here, and then takes off his shirt. Like, that's as best as he can roll in. Like, Bran loves him. He could have.
Do you guys see so far? This episode is amazing.
That's why I gave it like 5 lemon cakes for the first half, and then the second half just tanked it.
Yeah, so after this, and we can talk more about this scene, obviously, if we want, especially in context of later. But then we finally get to Jon and Dany privately talking, and I guess they have already had discussions about this, and she's like, you just need to never say anything ever to anyone.
And Jon's like, I'm not drunk, you're drunk. Shut up, kiss me, auntie.
She's gone very quickly from, a position of power, the Dragon Queen, to like seeming very insecure in these scenes. And I mean, she has to realistically know that, like, unless she kills all the people that know right now, like, this is going to get out, regardless of what Jon promises here. She should be planning to manage it, or to get married or something, instead of just being like, just keep quiet and all's good.
It would be better maybe if the actors had any believable chemistry.
Yeah.
Because as it is, it's like, y'all have been together how long? And you're begging him to keep this like dynasty ruining secret with tears? No, come on. Like, girl, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Give him a little kick in the ass. I don't know. I find I'm so frustrated on Dany's behalf that I find it very hard to comment on this, other than, of course, Jon is going to tell, because Jon is like, all right, I'll complain about Jon later.
For me, it's this was one of the reasons why I kind of didn't like the episode. It just feels so contrived. I mean, why is it so important that it's Dany on the throne or Jon on the throne? It's House Targaryen on the throne. So isn't that the mission here, to restore the house? Isn't it all about family?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, even in the books, like, it's always like all these rules of government are wrong, and the only one that's correct is Dany as ruler. And like, whether it's in Marine or Westeros or whatever. So like, she's always had that complex. I just don't understand what like, he's like, you're my queen, like, get married and like she can rule. Like, he doesn't want the power. And quite frankly, besides being a martial leader, he's a shitty like day-to-day leader.
Yeah. Last time he commanded something, he got stabbed.
What is his plan after all of this? Like, what's he gonna do? Like, is he gonna go back
King's
north?
Landing and mope? I mean, he's just gonna like look really sad in the Red Keep. No dragon. No ghost. He's just got Dany, who kind of isn't really that into them, and he doesn't have any chemistry with. Just like, well, I'm here.
He's supposed to be the Warden of the North. Isn't that his the title that she gave him?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I assume that she's going to make him some sort of position at court would be the idea, right? Because they're like, he's not going to be spending a lot of time up here, is what Tyrion says.
Master of ships?
No.
What was Tyrion's position at Castle Rock? Master of sewers or something?
He could be the game master, maybe.
Yeah.
Because think about it, like the small council, Jon can't be the master of coin. There's already a hand. Ships, no. I guess he could like run the city watch.
Laws.
That's kind of beneath him.
Master of laws. Give him some. Well, he's got Valyrian steel. He just beheads people.
Yeah.
On the Kingsguard.
The King's Justice, right?
Yeah, well,
but you can't be on the Kingsguard and be Warden and King of the North and all that too. So,
right.
Well, you could. They were trying to make Jaime that in the first book.
Oh, that's right. You're right. And plus, things have changed a hell of a ton. Like, they can just do whatever they want at this point.
Yeah.
Question: So other people are talk at various points about the possibility of Jon and Dany getting married. Is that ever broached between Jon and Dany?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Like, I honestly cannot remember in the show continuity. Is she opposed to get, like, she doesn't want anyone to rule, like, she wants a consort is what it seems like. She doesn't want, like, a king, like, who's gonna, like, steal her power.
And she doesn't need a foreigner because she's got to rule Westeros, which is what put Dario in friend zone over in Marine.
Last season, after she rescues Jon from above the wall, and they were having their moment, and she says, like, you know, you understand, like, I can't have kids, like, the dragons are my only children. And, like, I took that as sort of being, like, maybe we could do this, like, I don't know if she necessarily meant we get married and you're, like, my king consort, or how that was going to go, but it seems she was open to the idea, but it's never been brought up.
Maybe that was just like a Westeros birth control talk, and Jon's like, "Sweet, no condom."
Yeah, I just don't understand. Yeah, I just don't understand. Shouldn't the goal be trying to restore the Targaryen dynasty back? So shouldn't she be looking for every Targaryen cousin she could find under the rocks, so that house is back together again, and she has a lineage and a continuity? Because what's going to happen after she dies?
Well, that's always the question with Dany, and it's never answered, even in the books. And it's all about her belief. Like, she's high off her own steam. She wants to believe that she has to do this by herself. It has to be all about her. She doesn't trust anyone, understandably. And so, like, it makes sense that, like, she's like, no, I cannot concede even an inch because I do not trust anyone to not take power away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Tyrion mentioned it last season. We're like, well, what's the succession plan? She's like, fuck that. I'm going to live forever, bitches. Hand me my wine, you know? Like,
yeah. She's like, why are you so concerned about the succession plan? Like, you want to be king. What I found interesting was the next conversation when, like, what happens if Jon's parentage is really known? Like, do you think the small folk would actually rebel because they're just like, fuck this shit? Like, tons of us died during this rebellion that was over bullshit. Like, do you think they'll just be finally fed up with, like, the High Lords and try to change things? Or, like, you know, and I've always found it very sad, like, if, you know, R plus L equals J is right, that, you know, the whole rebellion cost so many lives and it was all for a lie, and, you know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I
guess this is probably a good time to bring up this. I feel like what has been a theme of this episode is like, them setting up Dany as a bad guy or a second bad guy. That, you know, I mean, they're starting to talk about Jon. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead in the discussion, but yeah.
This is honestly my least favorite part of this entire episode, which is, I understand that Targaryen madness is a thing that has been established in show canon. That is fine, but it rubs me such the wrong way that there's just, like, a gendered element about this of, like, I guess Dany's just crazy now, and Jon is our rational alternative. Like, as someone on Twitter said, like, it's like Jon Snow is basically Joe Biden, where it's like, we have so many other more compelling alternatives, and yet we're turning to him, I guess.
Well, I mean, they even say that, like, when Tyrion and Varys are talking at Dragonstone, which I don't understand. You know, we could talk about how they got in that position.
We'll get there, Matt. We'll get there.
All right. Remind me.
So let's start here with the small council or war council or whatever we have going on, which is where Dany sort of starts to come off the rails in this episode. Or at least I think that's where they're really laying the groundwork here of her being like, march through the night. No rest for anyone. We're splitting our forces, going straight to King's Landing, and people are rightfully kind of like, well, maybe we should take a minute here. And Jon's just like, whatever Dany says, because, you know, he's compensating.
No, Sansa was right, and, you know, god damn it, it's like, just listen. This is where it starts going off the rails for me.
They have a cool map.
They have a tiny assassin going to kill Cersei. They could wait. They could just wait.
Yeah.
They could have just been like, look, Arya's gonna take her face. Give us a week. Like, give us a week. Oh man.
Like, I don't understand what the rush is. They know she has a golden company. They say that other houses are marching towards her and that she's filling the Red Keep with people. Well, like, it's too late. Like, she's already started to fill the Red Keep with people.
Right. Well, their plan's not a bad plan, right? The idea that I think Tyrion proposes is that, look, she can't feed these people. They're going to turn on her if we just make sure that, like, she can't get food in and out of the city. Like, that's all we really have to do. And so this is where they mention the Prince of Dorne and everything going on. And then Dany's like, I'll take the water out. Water's clear. No one on the water, right, guys?
Why did she go to Dragonstone in the first place? What fucking sense did she go there?
It's because they have to go and do their laundry. They ran out of clean underwear.
I mean, was she thinking she would siege them from the bay or something? Because that didn't happen. I think she was.
Sorry.
Oh wait, no. Even in this scene, they do mention that, like, hey, if Euron tries to bring food, we'll just burn his ships. So right here, like, they even mention that, Euron's, exists.
Well, what you said last night in chat was that Dave and Dan said that, she forgot about Euron, but he didn't forget about her, which infuriated me to fucking, like...
Yeah, he literally said that. Like, well, Dany sort of just forgot the Iron Fleet was a thing, but they didn't forget about Dany. And I was just like, she's not that dumb. Neither is everyone on her war council. Like, that's insulting.
I think, though, this is the first time that... I mean, if I'm, like, tracing the logic lines of the show, I feel like this is the first time that we've seen scorpions on boats, which, like, I didn't expect to happen. So it's like Dragonstone has been used as a strategic position in the past. It seems to be just far enough away to be a pain in the ass for King's Landing to actually, like, I don't know.
You can control the shipping lane in and out of King's Landing if you control Dragonstone. I mean, Stannis did it, right?
Right.
So,
and I assume that Dany might have left people there, so they went there with the assumption that they were in the clear, and it just happened that there was a secret weapon that they didn't.
Was it the 3 dozen Unsullied she brought to King's Landing later that she left at Dragonstone?
I guess let's skip ahead to that scene because this is all kind of connected, and then we'll circle back to what happens in between. But Dragonstone, she left people there who obviously could have warned her that there were enemies, in the water.
She
her
should
dragons,
have seen them while flying.
Right, her dragons can fly high enough to see them. I mean, someone said it's like, she just came around a corner and they got her, and I'm like, why would that ever happen with dragons? It doesn't. To me, that doesn't make sense. I get what they're trying to go for here, and they built a lot of scorpions really fast for the boats for King's Landing. But the scorpions also are I don't know. They fly pretty far. They're really accurate. They explode all of her ships very quickly. It seems it's more of what they did when Euron destroyed Yara's fleet. Like, every shot was a hit that destroyed one of her boats, and like, boom, all gone. So they've done it before. I guess it's not out of.
And guys, those scorpions can't shoot straight up. She has a dragon, like, come up from like right on top of the ships and burn them all to. Like, I don't know. When she went straight on at the ships, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This is the stupidest thing I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah, she gets away, but the fact that she didn't see them at all before they shot, I thought was just kind of lazy. If they wanted to get rid of Rhaegal, that's fine. Find a way to do it. But, I mean, he was, like, ripped apart last episode. You could have just let him die there.
I thought he died last episode anyway. And did anyone think that Drogon actually got hit first? Because I thought...
Several people have said that they thought Drogon was the one that was hit. I don't know. I mean, it looked like a green dragon to me, but in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on.
As much as I guess the drama of it captivated me enough that I didn't really care that it was being done for drama's sake, and less more for like I guess like there's a lot of smarter ways to do it, but they didn't go with that, and that's whatever. I accept it. But that being said, like I had a very visceral reaction to watching him go into the water. It's like there are only 2 of these things, and it's like there's just now one. It's like endangered species. Just really.
I mean, everyone knows it's a common saying: the dragon must have a head. So, we got one dragon left.
Did anyone else just feel more pissed off because it was Euron that fired that bolt that killed it?
Yeah, it wasn't so much that the scorpion killed the dragon or that it was Euron, which Euron is more of a plot device than a character, so whatever. But it was just sort of the setup didn't make sense. Like if Jon was riding it, or if they were attacking, or if somehow there was a battle and he dies, fine. But just like that trope of like the camera, we get this forced perspective, so we're looking behind the dragons, and then look, a bolt through its neck. Didn't see that coming. Like it doesn't make sense. There were better ways to do it.
I wasn't too annoyed yet at this part. One thing that the show does really well is that they're really good at like the shock value. You just don't know what's going to happen sometimes. But then like on second thought, or probably not even second thought, like 5 minutes after this scene, I came to the realization that Rhaegal could have died last episode and we would have been in the same situation. They probably just did that for a shock value.
For effect. Yeah, exactly.
And then I was more angry about it.
And then
but in the moment I was like, oh shit, this is real.
Well, but it was sad. It was also sad. And I didn't really want to have to deal with that so quickly. What's going on there?
What's going on? What just fell over?
Sorry, my dog picked up a really loud bone and threw it all around. She's really upset about Ghost. Well, there was plot value to Rhaegal dying here because Cersei figures out she can kill a dragon. They'd hit a dragon once and then it came back fine. So now she knows that these ballistas can take down a dragon pretty quick.
Yeah, the difference between having 2 and having 1 feels huge. It feels like everything feels more precarious. And saying that, Dany could probably have gone back, circled around and torched those ships. I would not have wanted to if I were her. I'd have been like, fuck this, give my one living baby out of the range of the shit, not worth it.
Well, I guess we can talk about it on the last scene about the dragon being out of range, even though those scorpions were shooting across the entire bay to hit Dany's ships.
Right. I mean, the inconsistency there sucks. I mean, later when they're at King's Landing and Drogon is not that far away, I'm like, oh, they can just get him now.
Yeah, he's like, hey guys.
But anyway, let's stick with this scene for a second here. She loses what little fleet that she took down with the, 20, 30 Unsullied that were with her. She has some Dothraki somewhere, they said, apparently. I thought they'd all died. But she makes it to Dragonstone, obviously. Euron runs away. Grey Worm makes it. Tyrion makes it, gets knocked out. Varys, they all wash up on the shore. And Missandei was captured.
Varys just keeps swimming along while the big fish eat the little fish.
His Merling powers really saved him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the scene where it's revealed that Missandei was picked up. One, just a visual gut punch of so much for the breaker of chains, and Missandei is back in chains. That affected me. But also there's that goofy as hell moment when Cersei tricks Euron into believing that she's pregnant with his child, and he looks at Qyburn, and Qyburn's like, yeah, I can vouch for this medieval pregnancy test.
Nice. The error-proof test, Qyburn. So we're going to move ahead through that here in a minute, but let's round back to the other party at King's Landing, or I'm sorry, at Winterfell, heading down
the Bronn
south.
Party.
Not well. We're
not
almost
there yet.
This starts with so after the War Council, Dany leaves, dragon dies. Jon, on the other hand, goes to the Godswood to meet with Sansa and Arya, and they both, are like, Dragon Queen, I don't know, man, what the hell? And Bran's like, tell them your secret if you want, Jon. Like, fuck, Bran, you're useless. And so, of course, Jon does indeed tell them his secret.
No, he doesn't. He says,
Bran tells them the
and
secret.
I'll tell you, and then they both swear, and then he goes, tell them, Bran.
Or, well, right. You're right. He has Bran do it.
I have to wonder if we're going to get a flash. It almost feels like we don't need any flashback or additional information because we know what Bran would tell them. But it does feel very strange that we cut from this to Arya apparently leaving Winterfell forever. Like, we don't get to see her really say goodbye
Right.
to her family. It's a very strange jump. Unless, of course, later in the season, she and Jon are going to rendezvous, and that's why the writers were like, we don't need her to say goodbye here.
Yeah,
Didn't it feel like she was like all Team Stark, like we've got to take care of Winterfell, and then now she's like, I'm out.
I got a list, bitch.
It's one thing if she's like, well, I've got work to do, but she was like, I don't think I'll ever be back here, which just didn't make any sense unless she thinks she's going to die in her task.
I feel like in the last episode, the Red Woman kind of like Manchurian Candidate like activated Arya, and when she was like, what do we say to the god of death? And then all of a sudden Arya's like, oh yeah, I'm not a Stark, I'm a faceless man, I got people to kill, I got shit to do later.
No, I'm with you, Adam. I mean, in the Godswood movements was all about family. You don't trust anybody that we didn't grow up with. And then she just walks out, never to come back again. And actually the family stuff with Starks, it just feels wrong to me. I mean, the Starks are about duty, right? They were always about winter is coming, duty. The family thing is more a Lannister thing for me. Sure, yeah, the lone wolf dies and the pack survives, but even the Tullywoods are like family, duty, honor, duty. So don't they have duty towards Dany and help her, become the queen? And Dany's kind of going after Cersei, so they should be all for it, right? Why is Sansa trying to slow walk this?
Sansa stares at those dragons, and it's like, in my mind, she's looking at them being like, these things are going to fucking destroy the world. Like, it's like the nuclear weapons of Westeros, and she's just scared of these dragons, and she doesn't trust anyone that has them, is what it seems I mean, maybe I'm reading that wrong. But she just seems like dragons equal bad, period. Even less, like, not so much Dany, like, I don't trust Dany, but dragons, no thank you.
She also... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Well, all I wanted to say is just hasn't Dany been forthright with Sansa and the Starks? I mean, she's come up there, she sacrificed a lot, defended their castle, and now she's going after Cersei, a mutual enemy. I just don't understand why the Starks are so paranoid and cautious, especially when Jon's like so much vouching for her.
I feel like Sansa's being more pragmatic, and they acknowledge that, yes, Dany didn't need to come up to the north and fight the dead, but she did, and they appreciate that. But, like, slow your roll. Like, our guys are injured. They'll fight better, like, when they're at least, above 50%. Let their, like, heart, monitor go back up or whatever, like, in the video games. Like, I feel like it's just more pragmatic than it is.
No, I'm with you. Like with mercenary companies, you got to pay them every month. So the longer the siege goes, Cersei's going to be out of money. So it's a good thing. I'm with you guys. Definitely Dany is wrong, but I just don't get it why they're not really supportive of Dany with this final battle.
I think that Dany is wrong, but I think her motivations come from like the insecurity that they've shown us. Like, she's lost most of her troops. And so she's like, well, look, I need you to just fulfill your commitment to me now while it's fresh. Like, if I tell these people wait, maybe they won't go through with it. I think it's less of she actually thinks this is the best plan and more of she's just being reactionary, which didn't feel right for Dany. I mean, I don't know. They haven't really built her up to act that way, I guess, but they haven't really put her in this position before either.
No, she's been very, she's demanding, but she hasn't been, like, they haven't written her to be this stupid before, which is frustrating because it's just a bad tactical choice. But Sansa, I get the impression from, like, just her, we don't see her reaction to Jon presumably telling her about his heritage, but, like, I buy that Sansa is, at this point, like, damaged enough and paranoid and rightfully suspicious of people who aren't her family, that she's like, if my brother has a better claim on the throne and he's refusing to take it, this thing that would potentially protect our family,
right, like
exponentially more than it already is, and he's refusing to do it because he's betting this woman who I don't trust. I understand that, like, in her position, I would probably be pretty miffed too. Like, come on, like, dude, use your head, not your heart.
Well, and to
Yeah,
defend
not the little head, the big head.
well, and I think to defend the Starks more on that is, I don't think it's fair to look at them and say, well, they should be so grateful to everyone that came and protected their castle. Well, if they don't win that battle, everyone dies. Like, so, yeah,
Right.
It makes Cersei doubly bad that she didn't care at all that everyone might die, and either, she chose the one route where she might be queen at the end and risked the entirety of humanity. But that doesn't mean that Daenerys was doing the Starks a favor by saving humanity. She had some skin in that game too.
Yeah,
So
even the maesters at the Citadel, right? They didn't even lift a finger to help the Starks. And Dany here comes in from foreign place with her foreign army. And, I just feel like the Dothrakis died here for a foreign cause. Yeah.
Well, the Dothraki kind of had to die so that they wouldn't just start pillaging all of Westeros. I mean, that probably had to happen at some point, sadly, but the way it happened wasn't great. But what about, I mean, you mentioned like the maesters and such, like people down south, like no one, like who's even going to believe all this?
Yeah.
The Prince of Dorne.
Yeah, I mean, like the threat didn't get far enough south. They'll go down south and tell these stories of how like we saved you all, and they'll be like, from what? Things have been fine. Like Cersei's been wreaking havoc. Why aren't you helping with that?
Yeah, what's that Archmaester who said, people said when Robert's rebellion was going to happen, we're all going to die. People said when the Targaryen show, we're all going to die, but the wall has stood there forever. So this Maester's right? I mean, all that crying that Sam did in the Citadel.
Well, besides the wall part.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully someone will go up and see that the wall is gone and like the decimation. Maybe someone credible will bring the story down to the people of the South.
I bet they're going to say it's
remember.
fake news or something like that.
Yeah, this is unfortunately something that's like not making it into the history books. It seems like the North will remember, but the rest of the realm will be like, oh yeah, that fairy tale about
that time the wall broke on
Grumps
its
and
own and nothing
snarks
happened.
and
Yep.
the wall fell down.
And they'll write about, well, it'll be like, can't you see the next like history book 1,000 years later that like talks about crazy old Maester Sam Tarly talking about ice zombies and everything else and how laughable that is.
Maester Sam Tarly, Lord of Horn Hill.
Yes.
Maybe.
Lover of women.
Lover of women, father of children.
Lover of women. Oh goodness.
And fortified the living with his fat pink mast.
All right, let's move on to a different scene now, Matt. What about
Why, what happened?
What about Jaime and Tyrion? With Jaime saying he's going to stay behind, and Bronn just being like, "Hey, I'm here with the crossbow."
he just appears in that room.
And then disappears.
So stupid.
He fires a crossbow bolt, and Jaime's like 3 feet away. It takes like a minute to reload that thing. That would be the time to get him. And he's like, "Nope, it's reloaded." You're like, "What the hell just happened?"
And then after that entire stupidity, Jaime's like, "That's right, I should go back to Cersei." Like, yeah, she does care about it. She said, "Come on."
So the way I heard people are reading it is that Jaime is going to go and kill Cersei or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to, or else Bronn won't leave them alone until he gets Highgarden.
Then
Man,
why
Bronn's
wouldn't
just
he
gotta
tell
get it.
that to our girl Brienne? Kate,
I thought it actually makes sense. It's not like Jaime has never had a lapse like this before, and she is like his drug. And when he gets a reminder, it's like, one, she's pregnant, and I think that sort of might be swaying him a little. Like, oh God, like do I really belong here? And so in this last moment, he narratively, it does not make sense for. Like, yes, it would be very nice. It would be the right thing and the healthy thing for Jaime to not be a fuckboy and to stay with Brienne and live together with this woman who is actually the best thing for him.
Yeah.
But that's not his character, and I feel like in order for him to have any sort of denouement or actual apotheosis, he has to face off to his other half, and that makes sense for me for him as a character. As much as I want Jaime to be better, I feel like he needs. What am I trying to say? can't get over his addiction until he throws that drug in the
it's
sea.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's like, all right, Tyrion, hold my hand. I'll be right back.
Just one more bump.
Yeah.
he's gonna play fuck, marry, kill with Cersei the whole way down.
This is a weird motivation to get him, heading back that direction, and now we've got all these characters heading back into peril that could just safely stay in the north. But like, just the Bronn thing, he can't be in scenes with Cersei because the actors Lena Headey won't have him.
Because speaking of fuck buddies,
fine. But like the way they've used him the past few seasons because of that is just like, oh well, I guess he's just gonna switch sides and go back to the Tyrion bros or the Lannister bros because he actually likes them. No, he's like, well, I'm still kind of loyal to Cersei, but not really. I'm just waiting to see who wins. But both of you better pay up. Like, what?
Do you think Pod grabbed those two girls at the Winterfell feast? So because he knew Bronn was there, so he brought one for Bronn.
No, Pod.
Wasn't that the last time we saw them together? It was like, Pod, let's go get a beer, and then they fucked off somewhere.
He was like, tell me what you did to those girls in that brothel, Pod. Call back.
So the thing about them promising reach to Bronn doesn't make any sense. If everything's gonna go and Dany or Jon is gonna win, the reach is gonna belong to them, not Jaime and Tyrion. So isn't it Bronn like an idiot saying, "Oh, okay, you give me the reach," but
if he
it doesn't belong to you?
Gold or something, maybe. But I mean, look, bring him before Dany. Like, we're gonna confer Highgarden to you and stab. Like, let's just get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Also, now's the time that he's like, oh, the dragons will win, and not before where it's like, maybe I can make some money fighting for the dragons. Like, he just stuck around King's Landing and was like, I guess all the whores liked him because all the other guys were dead.
Yeah, they needed a character that you knew without introducing someone else, I guess. Yeah.
One sad thing about Jaime going down south is I'm going to miss the sitcom that could have come with Jaime, Brienne, and Sansa being roommates. Jaime was going to...
Three's Company?
Three's Company. Jaime was going to stay in Winterfell and mooch off Sansa. Sansa was going to... Hey, if you're going to stay here without rent, you got to at least do the dishes, man.
He's like, I got one hand. But
I wish...
Who ate my ice cream?
All right, Katie?
I wish they'd give poor Nikolai Coster-Waldau a different haircut. Because I am over this weird bangs issue that he's got going on. It makes it very hard for me to take him seriously.
It literally looks like
emo.
straw.
It's emo.
What'd you say, Casey?
It looks like straw.
Yeah, what happened to his luscious golden locks? It doesn't matter. I actually really enjoyed Brienne, figuratively taking off her armor for once. She's just lost her virginity. This is very upsetting. She's caught feelings. She wants him to stay, and fuckboy pieces out. It's rough. It's really rough.
She literally has, the most emotion, I think, of, anybody in the show.
And it's the right choice.
Yes.
It's come on, nobody is better than Brienne. She's honor distilled into the shape of a tall, beautiful woman. What are you doing, dude?
What's going on with Winterfell's security where people can come and go at all hours and
no one's brought in?
Yeah.
I was mentally preparing myself to have to hear more, oh yeah, Jaime rode the mountain talk. But then he just comes in and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit better than that, wherever that was going. But,
Oh yeah, I forgot that Tyrion was being gross. Yeah, wasn't Tyrion just pull one of those serving girls? All of a sudden, there's a bunch of cute serving girls in Winterfell that maybe hiding in the crypts or something? I don't know. But yeah, they're all around for the feast. People are grabbing them two at a time, like Pod. He's pulling himself a Fredo.
Well, I assume that there's more women left than men after the fight, even though they didn't really depict that.
I don't know. Those crypts were a fucking bloodbath.
I feel Tyrion would ask for details, but I wish he had done it in a wittier way. Because Peter Dinklage just saying, what is she like down there? I was like, that's not you. That is so not Tyrion.
Yeah, I enjoyed the climbing for it and the tall joke because that seemed, funny. But what she like down there seemed like kind of gross and personal.
So, this is where Sansa is kind of looking at the dragons, giving them those like, "Fuck, these things are terrible" eyes, and then Tyrion shows up and they have their chat, and she's like, "What if there was someone better?" And you're like, "Oh, so Sansa just can't keep her mouth shut either," which Jon had to know. So now the secret is out.
Yeah, I like that. Varys' line, how many people know? Oh, 8? Okay, it's going to be 100 soon or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I like what he says is like, it's not a secret now, it's information. Like, it's a commodity.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's a good way to put it. So we've discussed kind of a lot around that scene, but just that serves the function of, Dany hates dragons, Tyrion has secret, and that moves on into another scene. And then we get Tormund saying that the wildlings are going to go back north, or they're going to leave the south, which he calls Winterfell the south, which always cracks me up. And Jon is like, "Take Ghost with you. Direwolves shouldn't be here. It's terrible to have a direwolf down south."
Oh,
and
God
Ghost
damn it.
doesn't seem feral like Nymeria. I don't think Ghost would necessarily do so well going to King's Landing. He could have made that point, but he could have left Ghost to roam the Godswood, around Winterfell, the Wolf's Wood. Right?
Exactly.
And
Ghost is
for someone for
practically...
Bran.
Yeah, Ghost is practically domesticated.
Right. So it was so sad. He never petted Ghost, and as you said, Katie, maybe that's just a technical thing. It was just too hard to do. I mean, it's fine, but I shed a tear because as much as the dragons in the last scene looked pretty darn good, Ghost is just looking raggedy as shit. They haven't cleaned the blood off of him. I don't know what happened to him in the battle because we didn't see any of it.
White fur, man.
Yeah,
It's hard to get the stains out.
It was sad. I want to adopt one of those dogs or something now, just because Jon sent him away. And then we get that Sam is like, "Hey, by the way, one in the oven." All right. And then that's sort of the end of our northern episode portion. What do you guys think?
Yes, somebody needs to tell Gilly that there are more names than just John and Sam.
Well, she's like, other than that, I know Craster.
Yeah, 3 names.
Oh, let's stay away from that one.
I know 3 guy names: Sam, John, and Craster.
And Night King.
And Night King and Aemon.
So, if you don't mind, I want to talk about the Varys thing. I'm kind of surprised that Varys switched sides so quickly. Like, he's already plotting against Dany, and I'm like, what has Dany done that's kind of put Varys off? I mean, she's kind of always taken his advice, right? Even now, when Missandei got kidnapped, then she listened to Tyrion and go and try to negotiate with Cersei.
It was begrudgingly, but Varys has just sort of been on pause since was it last season when Daenerys is sort of like, "Don't betray me," and he's like, "Well, I'll serve the realm, but I'll let you know if I'm going to betray you." He just has been like a non-factor,
but
hiding in the crypts and whatnot.
Yeah, but the fact that he was hiding in the crypts, quivering like a coward, waiting for these other people that now he's turning against to maintain his protection, it just doesn't make sense that he would flip that quickly.
Yeah. I mean, wait until she's in the throne before you try plotting against her.
Also, try plotting against her in a small room. They're in the throne room of Dragonstone at one point, lit by one fire. Who knows who's listening? And then they're in the ship the next time they're talking about if they're complaining about 8 people knowing about Jon and his parentage, how many people know about their possible treason?
Yep, voice carries over open water.
Sure
So
does.
pretty much the entire fleet knows by now.
Yeah, and so is Tyrion is not on board with this discussion they're having on the ships about hey, maybe someone else can do the job better than Dany. She's going crazy, but he also doesn't go straight to Dany. I guess she's on the dragon, but later on, so it's gonna come out, and is she just gonna burn both of them? Tyrion for not telling her soon enough, and Varys for not believing in her.
Oh, I hope not.
I think maybe Varys might get it, but I also think that Varys might kill her. So I'm not sure.
God, that would be such a fucking bummer after 8 seasons.
Are they going to use that to like tip the edge of like maybe she finishes off Cersei fairly easily or something, and then they use shit like that to kind of tip the edge of like, oh, now Jon and crew have to slay the Dragon Queen. Like, I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I think that Dany's going to run a suicide mission thinking like, oh, I survive fire all the time, and just like try to light the entire King's Landing on fire and maybe not get it. But I mean, I don't understand how not only Cersei killed Missandei but didn't shoot the shit out of Tyrion. I mean, he had good plot armor on, I guess, but
well, she still, as much as she hates Tyrion, still kind of stays her hand. I think probably the best scenes that she's had the last couple seasons are like with Tyrion and like showing that hatred and bitterness, but also like the fact that she cannot bring herself that far. I think that's been some of the best work that she's done.
But what far? She blew up like half the fucking High Lords of the entire continent.
I know, but it's still her brother, like somewhere deep inside.
That she hates for killing her mother and is hated forever. And then hates for killing her son.
As horrible as she's been, I think the fact that they're trying to show that like on some level, like she still recognizes he's a Lannister, he's family. You know, which I mean, Lancel was family, but whatever.
He sent her daughter out to Dorne, and then they killed her, and I think there's enough evidence against him.
But it's not, I kind of, it's in a twisted Cersei logic. I feel like it's like if she doesn't have Jaime and Tyrion as like these locuses of love and hate in her life, she doesn't have anything. She doesn't have anyone. And it's like, yeah, she despises him, and there's some part of her that wants to rip him to shreds, but it's like, God, if I don't have this, like, who do I have? Like, who is there in the world, like, for me to channel all of my anger and hatred at? There's nobody. And ultimately, like, he's not that big of a threat to her anymore. Like, there's nothing he can really do. Dany's the threat. He's just the mouthpiece that's speaking at her. And so I can see her, like being torn between wanting like immediate vindictiveness and then also like thinking long term of like, I really need an arch nemesis. Like,
yeah. Maybe
she did.
I thought maybe that like she only thinks that if she actually does kill Tyrion, there would be nothing for Jaime to love her for ever.
Yeah, you may be right. She's just only sparing him for Jaime. But she did send Bronn to kill Jaime and Tyrion, right? I mean, if Bronn carried out his orders, he wouldn't be here, so...
Oh, I forgot about that. Fuck. I completely
Oh, yeah,
forgot
and that's
it was
why
her.
Jaime was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I love my sister. I have to leave Brienne.
Well, my theory goes up.
Was it you that said, I mean, I guess, because we're talking about, all this stuff in front of King's Landing and all that, but was it you that said like, why doesn't Euron be like, hey, how does he know you're pregnant?
Exactly. I think Reddit was pointing it out as well. Like, how does he know?
Men don't know how pregnancy works.
No, I mean, Euron just found out that
Yeah, because it's supposed to be
that
news.
Cersei is pregnant, and now Tyrion knows, so he's gonna put 1 and 2 together and figure out. Wait a minute, you're pregnant even before because the last time you met Tyrion
she's like,
whenever.
Sweetie, I sent out a birthday raven, or I sent out,
Birthday raven.
announcement ravens or whatever.
Clearly there are
God knows there's
spies.
babies.
It's not from when we had sex. It's from my last period before I started missing them. So don't worry about it. It can be weeks off.
It's because I'm glowing. Everyone can see that I just have the fullness of life within me. Yeah, I expect him to put 2 and 2 together. But whether or not he actually does anything about it, he might... There was another character who was like, I don't care who the father is as long as, like, I can marry her, because, like, who really... Like, yeah, who actually cares
that
about...
was Bronn with Lolly Stokeworth in the books.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just thinking is like, even if he's like, it's Jaime's is like happened before, worked out fine for Robert, people believed that they were Baratheons. So Euron's just nuts.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I hate you.
I mean, you got to remember too. There's no way he can read a calendar, so Cersei's probably pretty safe from that front. 10 months. What are those? Did anyone think Missandei was like about to try to grab Cersei with like the chain and try to pull her off the wall?
And jump.
I was like, that was just as much. I kind of when that didn't. I mean, not that I expected that to happen, but it was sort of to me that was the same reason that Tyrion's alive. They just weren't going to do any of that stuff, and they needed a good shot, so they didn't mind that the characters were technically in peril.
Yeah, I mean, like Cersei could have been killed right there. I mean, wouldn't have been terribly hard, I think.
I'm surprised that Tyrion walked past Qyburn to make his plea, and then they cut off Missandei's head, and then Qyburn was nowhere to be found.
Are you saying there's going to be an undead Missandei?
I think he was after the head, if anything.
Oh, no,
he likes decapitated heads.
No.
No. So wait, Undead Gregor, what kind of rules does he operate off of? Does he need like the Night King magic kind of too? I guess not. I don't even understand.
His brother to fucking stick a sword right through his fucking face.
So Cersei has been controlling him like with her mind, it seemed, for a while. So I feel like when she dies, he's just gonna like collapse like the Whites did. She's like a mini version of the Night King or something when it comes to Gregor.
Which is fair because like Qyburn did say that he wouldn't rest until all the Queen's enemies were dead. So maybe if the Queen is dead.
It's just so weird. I hate it in the books too. It's so weird. Like, because it's not really supposed to be magical. Well, okay, it's magic.
Well, it's supposed to be dark magic, right?
I thought it's supposed to be like literally just Frankenstein, like pseudoscience. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
It's bullshit. Anyway, Missandei deserved
Did
better.
you guys expect this to go longer? Because I mean, I remember seeing the episode still had like 15 minutes or something, and then suddenly it was credits, and I was like, oh, I thought like maybe there'd be more to it. Shit's going down next week, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Apparently, it's supposed to be Shakespearean, according to Emilia Clarke. Next episode.
Like she's gonna go full Ophelia and lose her shit, or like...
I don't know.
She also said that this episode was even bigger than last episode.
Oh.
It's so crazy. It's over the top. I'm like, I can't trust people anymore. Lena Headey is like actively trolling the fan base for like 5 years.
Well, yeah, she did like the stone heart
the
thing
stone
on
hearts
her,
and
yeah,
shit,
and then like she was plugging out Pedro Pascal's eyes like in an Instagram thing.
I guess just like about this last scene, I did think it was pretty cool. Like, I really like Missandei. I'm really bummed that she's not going to be able to, retire to Nath, Butterfly Isle. But the fact that her last word is just like, yeah, burn it all fucking down.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Barrick on the forums wrote like a very insightful review of this episode, and he felt like that was her saying like, kill this evil that's infested King's Landing. But when she's from the peaceful Isle of Nath, like, do you think maybe that evil has infested her and she's just taking it now as a part of it completely before like she finally dies?
It could be. We don't really we're not in her head, so we don't really know their motivation. It could be like a freedom cry because Dracarys is what freed the slaves. It's it can be a very positive thing because Missandei is a very gentle and kind soul, but it could also just be like a genuine like, man, fuck this. Like, I'm about to die here. I was about to go. I had my boyfriend. Yeah, burn all these crackers
I was going to take him to die with the butterflies.
Yeah. Well, and then, what's going to happen with Grey Worm? Because he was showing a lot of emotion, and he, admitted to Missandei, and I think last season, she was his weakness, So is he going to go off the rails and just do something insanely stupid? I figured it would have happened when that happened, but he seemed very overly agitated, but yet restrained.
Ugh, if Danny dies, he dies. If Danny lives, maybe he lives. I feel like.
No, it's Clegane Ball, right? He and Hound are gonna go after the mountain.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I wonder, I don't know. This episode wasn't that bad. I mean, we've been discussing it and all that. There were so many moments that were just real sad, and
It was, think about it. It was that bad.
but like she had no army outside of King's Landing. Like,
Why didn't the Lannisters just storm her and just take her? And if her dragon
Yeah.
became afraid, they had the scorpions. Like, I don't understand. Yeah.
The chosen blocking and setting of that last scene was probably could have been set up better, because there's no reason why Cersei can just not order them all to be obliterated.
Right.
With the
I
scorpions.
was looking for strong Belwas. I was like, Belwas is gonna come out and finish this. Like,
Oh, you know what, guys? I forgot to bring this up at the very, very beginning of the episode. When they're burning all the heroes. But did anyone else see Daenerys whisper something to Jorah's body?
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you figure she said? Because I didn't hear anything.
I
Sorry.
love you.
Sorry.
I didn't want the D.
You were my bear. Now your house is dead. Sorry.
I was totally gonna fuck you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before.
Yeah, it was gonna be after the battle, but I guess not now.
I need more.
I was really hoping on Jon dying and not you.
I love you
How
like
much
a brother.
How much did the show discuss her Jorah's previous wife looking exactly like her? Was that in the early seasons? I'm trying to remember now.
That was season 2. I think it came up.
I feel like it was season 1 or season 2. When they're in the Western market in season 1, and maybe I'm confusing that with the books.
I think it's in Karth in the show. I seem to recall there being God, it's been so freaking long, and that storyline was not good.
Well, I mean, that gave Daenerys crazy eyes like she had, last night too. That whole "Where are my dragons" kind of thing.
Oh, and it was such TNG, that whole thing just looked like a TNG episode. It was so good. Karth.
She doesn't wait for Jon. She doesn't wait for the rest of her army to show up and help.
No, she sure doesn't.
That's the sort of move I would expect. I mean, she was burn them out, and they were like, well, it's not going to happen because it's too dangerous for you. But that's the sort of thing I would expect is maybe she flies to the Red Keep and just starts burning shit and somehow doesn't die.
You know what would be super helpful?
Let's go for a treaty thing is eh.
Well, I get that because it's we gave them a chance before we burnt the shit out of them. But it'd be super helpful is if they sent a raven to Yara and be like, we need the Iron Fleet to take on your uncle's fleet and help us out there. But I'm sure that raven was sent. We just didn't see it. They'll just show up next episode out of nowhere.
So guys, is Gendry gonna quickly make a suit of armor for Drogon next episode? Because that seems to be the prevailing theory online, that Euron's looking up into the sky and he's blinded by the reflection of Drogon's armor.
Really? That's a legit theory.
I've seen that all over the place.
He does look shocked
I
about
don't
something.
know.
It could be that Dany trains Drogon to carry a giant vat of oil and then dump it over the ship.
She can firebomb him. I don't have to get close to you. Everyone, I don't know. I saw that on Reddit and Twitter and Facebook. I saw a bunch of different people being like, "Hey guys, dragon armor."
I mean, it has to be. Right?
I didn't think of that, but yeah, right. I mean, and like I said, the final scene of the show is going to be Bran turning into the new Night King, and Bronn's going to show up with his crossbow and a dragon glass bolt and be like, "Not today, fucker." And then it's going to roll credits.
I don't see that happening.
I'm still
Really?
hoping for an Animal House ending where we get freeze frames with Tormund went on to open an Airbnb beyond the wall.
The Night Fort by Tormund.
Yeah. And then Davos be like, Davos, no one's ever heard of him again.
I honestly, until you said that, I was like, oh fuck, Davos is in the show still.
Yeah.
Totally.
Our boy's still there. Does have a wife over on, what is it, Cape,
Wrath.
yeah.
The rain tree or rainforest or.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe like Davos will argue with himself about Dany and Jon, and that's how they settle it? Yeah, he does one of his whole like, "This is a great leader" speeches that he does for whoever he's following.
I think Gilly will give birth, and then Davos will promote the baby somehow, because he does like the young people.
He's a grandpa.
Yeah, he's John of Horn Hill. He's
That's right.
Lord in Horn Hill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which that's going to be a great conversation that Sam has to have with baby Sam. Like, I know you're
Daddy,
my son.
why am I not named for you? Well, because you were fathered by your own father, by who was your mother's father, and who's also your
What's
grandfather.
the bastard name of Beyond the Wall? Ice? I don't know.
Everyone.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any predictions for next episode? Do you think they're gonna largely wrap up the whole King's Landing thing, and it's just gonna be Jon and Dany? Like the last episode's gonna sort of just settle things, between our friends who are now enemies? Do you think Cersei's gonna go to the wire? Like, what do you think?
So I think that I posted this on Twitter. I'm kind of feeling a Trojan horse type thing going on. And I'm not even taking that from anything that anybody's said, like Amelia Clark said, like Shakespearean type things, and that's not even Shakespearean, so whatever. But anyways, I think that's kind of their only choice now with how little people they have, and also doing that without it'll be the least amount of casualties. Dany doesn't want to hurt her dragon, so why not sneak a bunch of people in?
Yeah, Davos knows all the smuggler routes, right? So he can probably get people in there without too much trouble.
And not even that, just think that they won, give them a lion type Trojan horse, if you will, and they can all party it out, and then they can fight them off. That's my crackpot theory for the next episode. That's all I got.
Crockpot?
All right. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything?
Cooking some mac and cheese.
Kevin?
slow cook theory. I think that Clegane will happen, which has been foreshadowed. But I think Sandor will strike a couple blows that should kill Gregor, and he'll just keep coming at him. I think that that's how Sandor's going to go down, at least.
You don't think Arya's going to
maybe he'll finally use fire to kill his brother.
Yeah, I learned my lesson coming up with theories and stuff like that, so I'm not going to even try.
Yeah. We don't have to come up with crazy theories. I was just like, does anybody have mild predictions mostly?
I think the Tullys will make a reappearance in some fashion.
Yeah.
Do you think they have time to stop at River Run?
No, I think the River Run, there's some forward-thinking Sansa up in Winterfell will send a raven down to River Run and be like, "Hey, we're all fighting Cersei because we just fought the dead fuckers. Join them."
Well, they got to get Edmure out of Casterly Rock for that.
Well, Edmure was in River Run and they surrendered it to the Freys, and then Arya killed all the Freys. So
right, but they took him to
in the books. In the books,
I think
not
they
in
did
the
that in
show.
the show too, didn't they? Didn't Jaime say he was going to Casterly Rock?
I don't think.
I thought he did, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I just know the Blackfish died.
But also,
I do think
Unsullied
Savard-
already captured Casterly Rock, so.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's right. I don't remember
yeah.
anything about last season.
I do think to Varley's point, though, that we'll probably see at least one or two of these kind of reforged, what are they called? Kingdoms, I guess. The West or someone's going to show up, Stormlands, Under Gendry, or whoever, to help maybe get things going again.
I think for sure the Iron Islands are, just because
Yara's
to be able to, sail around a continent and.
Can we just say that the only part untouched by this conflict really is Dorne? Like they lost their
entire ruling class and the usurping ruling class.
They lost their heads of state basically, but their army just hasn't done shit. So if anybody still has capable fighters, it's Dorne.
I legit don't know what's going to happen in these next two episodes, which is scary and exhilarating, but mostly scary because I'm convinced that they're just going to make Dany a crazy woman and have to be put down and then fucking put Jon on the throne, which is like my nightmare for the books, and I don't want it to become my nightmare for the show. But if anything else happens, I'll be pretty good. Like those are just
you thought that the final boss was Cersei, but now it's Dany.
God, I don't want it.
I don't want it either.
Take notes, Katie. Jon is dead in the books.
Yeah, and as we've already stated, I don't need the Winds of Winter, so I guess I can just let it go.
Heresy! Oh, well, we will not cover that anyway, because when the Winds of Winter drops, it's gonna be crazy. Someday.
When the Winds of Winter come back, Vic will return to the Dragon.
Yeah,
that's right. I think Vic returning to DragonCast is the first sign of the Winds of Winter getting published. There's 3 more that we have to accomplish, but
he still has to write a few more wildcard books and a few more world-building books, right? World of Ice and Fire, Volume 15.
All right. Let's close it out, guys. So, does anybody have anything else coming out? Any other podcasts? Anything they want to promote? I mean, we're putting out 10 podcasts a week at the moment.
Yeah, so
it's
we
crazy.
just did a reread recording yesterday, and Bina posted it yesterday. So listen up.
Yeah, it's nuts right now, guys. Thank you for the 100 or 1,000 or however many it is that listen to any of the episodes we produce, because it's just nice to be able to talk about this with kind of like-minded geeks, because most of us don't necessarily have that right down the street. So we appreciate that.
I mean, also out right now is the Ice and Fire Con podcast that we just did over the weekend. Woo-hoo! Zach got that out super quick. Thank you again for doing that if you're listening. But basically, really awesome con to go to. That's if you're not up for the amount of people that are at Comic-Con. This is much more low key, and I highly recommend listening / maybe going and seeing some people that are also nerds of Ice and Fire.
Huzzah, Casey!
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. It's been great, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Adam.
See ya.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks.
Still going strong, man.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing such a good job.
Ready to wrap up this pile of shit in a nice DragonCast bow.
I know.
Well, what do we do if all the dragons die? Are we just cast?